Sometimes the most disturbing mysteries do not come from the shadows of fiction, but from real life itself. Stories that shook investigators to their core and left the world haunted for years. But time has a way of uncovering the truth, and tonight, we revisit 5 once unsolved cases that BuzzFeed once explored, but that now have answers. Our first story begins on an ordinary summer day that turned into one of the strangest crimes in American history. The case that would come to be known as the collar bomb incident. It was August 28, 2003 in the quiet city of Erie, Pennsylvania. A pizza delivery man named Brian Douglas Wells walked calmly into a local bank. Around his neck hung a large metal device that looked like something out of a nightmare. Witnesses first thought it was a prank or a movie stunt. Then someone saw the wires. Someone saw the blinking, and panic filled the air. Brian stepped up to the counter and handed the teller a note demanding $250,000. The note warned that if the money was not handed over within minutes, the bomb around his neck would explode. While the teller scrambled to collect what cash she could, Brian stood quietly. He even sucked on a lollipop, as if trying to stay calm. When the teller returned, she only had a small amount of cash. The vault could not be opened so quickly. Brian took the bag and walked out, swinging it lightly by his side. Minutes later, police found him standing beside his car in a parking lot. They handcuffed him and ordered everyone to clear the area. Brian pleaded that 3 people had forced the device onto him, that he was only following their orders. Officers saw the fear in his eyes, but could not risk going closer. The bomb squad was called, but traffic delayed their arrival, and then it happened. A loud crack echoed through the parking lot. The device detonated. Brian Wells was gone before help arrived. What followed was a mystery that seemed too strange to be real. Investigators searched his home and found detailed instructions, 9 pages written as if part of a twisted scavenger hunt. Each step directed Brian to find keys that would supposedly delay the bomb. The notes claimed he was being watched, that if he contacted authorities he would die. Police tried following the same route described in the papers. Even at top speed, they could not finish it in time. Whoever wrote those notes knew that Brian would never survive. For weeks the case went nowhere until a month later. A man named William Rothstein called 911. His voice was calm. He said there was a frozen body in his garage freezer. When police arrived, they discovered the body of a man named James Roden. Rothstein claimed his ex-girlfriend Marjorie Deal Armstrong had killed Roden and begged him to help hide the body. He said he was not involved in the murder, but confessed that he had kept the corpse frozen for weeks. Investigators were skeptical. Then they found a note on his desk saying, "This has nothing to do with the Wells case," which of course only made them more suspicious. Marjorie was soon arrested. During questioning, she admitted she knew details about the collar bomb plot. She offered to reveal everything if they transferred her to a lighter security prison. Over many interviews, she finally confessed. She said Rothstein had designed the bomb, that the plan was meant to fund a hit on her own father for inheritance money. Another man named Kenneth Barnes had agreed to kill her father for $250,000. To raise that money, they decided to stage a bank robbery. They needed someone to carry the bomb, and Brian Wells was chosen. According to reports, Brian may have thought the bomb was fake. He believed it would make him look like a hostage if caught, but he never realized the device was real. He was tricked and left to die. Later, witnesses said they had heard Brian talk about a bank plot weeks before he was seen at Rothstein's house the day before the robbery, possibly rehearsing the plan. Whether he was willing or not, he became the fall guy. Years later, a woman named Jessica Hoopsick, who knew Brian personally, admitted that she had given his name to the conspirators in exchange for money and drugs. She said Brian had no idea what was really happening. He thought it was only a delivery job. In the end, he was used by people he trusted, a pawn in a deadly game. The FBI later declared the case solved. The bomb built by Rothstein. The plot organized by Marjorie and Barnes and Brian Wells, both participant and victim, a man who walked into a nightmare and never walked out. Our next case takes us to Los Angeles, to a place where the line between reality and horror blurs completely. The mysterious death of Elisa Lamott was early in the year 2013, when Elisa, a young student from Vancouver, decided to take a solo trip through California. She was bright, full of energy, sharing pictures of bookstores and city streets online. Her posts showed a girl enjoying adventure. But something shifted when she checked into the Cecil Hotel near Skid Row, a place with a dark and unsettling history. At first, Elisa shared a room with other travelers, but within 2 days she was moved to her own space. Her roommates had complained of strange behavior. She left notes that read, "Go home or go away," locked them out, and demanded a secret password to enter. Staff described her as friendly yet unpredictable. One night she attended a live recording of a comedy show, but was asked to leave for acting erratic. Every day Elisa called her parents back in Canada, until January 31st. The day she was supposed to check out and head to Santa Cruz. That day no call came. Her family panicked and contacted the police officers, searched her room. They brought dogs through every hallway, even onto the roof, but found nothing. 2 weeks later the police released a surveillance video, the last known sighting of Elisa Lam. It was filmed inside one of the hotel elevators. In the video she moves in and out of the frame, presses every button, peers into the hallway as if someone is watching her. Her hands move in odd shapes. Her expression keeps changing. Then she steps out. The elevator doors stay open, and she disappears from view. The internet exploded with theories. Some said she was running from someone. Others whispered about ghosts or the so-called elevator game. But reality would turn out far more tragic. Guests at the Cecil began complaining of low water pressure. The water came out dark with a strange taste. Maintenance staff went up to check the rooftop tanks. Inside one of them they found the missing girl Elisa Lam, floating face up in the cold water. The discovery shocked the world. How could she have ended up there? The tanks were heavy, and the roof door was locked. But investigators determined that Elisa could have reached the roof using a fire escape. The hatch to the tank was open when the worker found her, so it was possible she climbed in on her own. The coroner ruled her death an accident. Elisa had bipolar disorder and had stopped taking her medication correctly. In the past, she had gone missing during similar episodes. This time, she had no one nearby to help. She likely suffered a breakdown, climbed up alone and drowned before anyone noticed. Still, the haunting elevator footage remains, one of the most chilling moments ever captured. A young woman lost inside her own mind, wandering the halls of a building filled with darkness. Her story, a tragic reminder of how fragile life can be. The next mystery takes us back to the summer of 1974, a quiet beach town in Massachusetts, and a discovery that would puzzle investigators for nearly half a century. It was July 26th, when a 12-year-old girl was walking her dog through the dunes of Provincetown. The dog began barking wildly, and when the girl followed, she froze in shock. Lying on a beach blanket was the body of a woman. Her hands were gone. Her teeth had been pulled, and half of her head was crushed. Beside her lay a blue bandana and a pair of Wrangler jeans carefully folded under her head, as if placed with care. The case became known as the Lady of the Dunes. No one knew her name. No one came forward, and the brutality of her death left police with few clues. Over the decades, her body was exhumed 4 different times. Each new generation of detectives hoping new technology would reveal who she was. Many theories emerged. Some thought she was connected to organized crime. Others believed she had been a drifter or a runaway, but her identity remained a mystery until nearly 50 years later. On Halloween Day, 2022, the FBI finally announced her name, Ruth Marie Terry. For the first time, the Lady of the Dunes was no longer a Jane Doe. She had been a real woman with a life and family who had wondered what became of her. Investigators then looked back at possible suspects. One name kept surfacing, a man named Guy Rockwell, Moldavan. Ruth's own husband, Moldavan's past was dark. In the 1950s, he had already been suspected in another murder case involving a young couple. Later, his second wife and her daughter vanished under mysterious circumstances. Human remains were found in his septic tank but could not be identified. Despite these horrors, he managed to avoid conviction, He traveled freely, started new businesses, and lived comfortably for decades. When Ruth married him in the early 1970s, her family thought she had found happiness, but soon after their wedding trip, he returned home alone, driving her car. When asked where she was, he claimed they had argued and gone their separate ways. Ruth was never seen again. Years later, Moldavan died quietly in California, living out his final days without ever facing justice. But modern DNA testing changed that. When Ruth's remains were identified in 2022, police confirmed that she had been married to Guy Moldavan. And by August 2023, authorities officially named him as her killer. The Lady of the Dunes case was finally solved. After almost 50 years of silence, the woman in the sand was given back her name, Ruth Marie Terry, a victim whose story was nearly erased. Now remembered as proof that even time cannot hide the truth forever. Our next story begins not with a crime of violence, but with a mystery that drove people into the wilderness, chasing a dream of gold and glory. Forrest Fenn was an art dealer from Santa Fe, New Mexico, a man who had lived a full and adventurous life. In his later years, he decided to leave behind a legacy unlike any other. He filled a small chest with gold coins and jewels worth nearly $2 million. Then he hid it somewhere in the vast Rocky Mountains. To guide seekers, he published a poem filled with cryptic clues, a challenge to the world to come and find his hidden treasure. At first, it sounded like a grand adventure. Families packed their cars and headed for the mountains. Thousands searched the rivers and valleys, believing they could solve the riddle. But over time, the dream turned deadly. In 2016, a man named Randy Bilyeu vanished while searching. His body was found months later. No cause of death could be determined. Then came Jeff Murphy, who fell to his death in Yellowstone National Park. Pastor Paris Wallace, who drowned in the Rio Grande, Eric Ashby, who was found in a river in Colorado. And finally, Michael Wayne Sexton, who died alongside a friend near the Utah border. 5 people in total lost their lives chasing Forrest Fenn's promise of fortune. Police begged Fenn to call off the hunt, but he refused, saying the treasure was real and still waiting to be found. Then in June of 2020, Forrest Fenn made a stunning announcement. He said the treasure had finally been discovered, hidden under a canopy of stars in the green forests of the Rockies. He congratulated everyone who had searched and said the adventure had come to an end. For weeks, no one knew who had found it or where it had been hidden. Then a young man named Jack Stuve stepped forward. He was a medical student from Michigan and had once been a writer for BuzzFeed. Unsolved itself, Jack said the poem had led him exactly to the spot in Wyoming where the chest was buried. He kept the precise location secret, but shared that he had studied the clues for years until everything finally made sense. His reveal should have ended the legend. But instead, it started a wave of controversy. A French treasure hunter claimed that Fenn had moved the chest during the pandemic to cheat him out of victory. He filed a $10 million lawsuit accusing Fenn's estate of deception. The court dismissed the case. The treasure was real. It had been found. And the search was over. When Forrest Fenn passed away later that year, he left behind a strange legacy. A single box that brought wonder to some and tragedy to others. A story of obsession, adventure, and the dangerous pull of hope. The Rocky Mountains keep their secrets. Well, but at least this one is finally at rest. Our final case takes us to the bright lights of Las Vegas, a night filled with music fame and danger. And the murder that shook the world of hip-hop. It was September 7th, 1996. Rapper Tupac Shakur was riding through the Vegas Strip in a black BMW driven by record producer Suge Knight. They had just left a boxing match and were heading to a party. The streets were alive with noise, cars glowing with neon light. No one could have known it would be Tupac's final night alive. At a red light, a white Cadillac pulled up beside them. Gunfire erupted. Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. Suge Knight was struck by fragments, but survived. 6 days later, Tupac Shakur died in the hospital, at only 25 years old. For years, the case remained a storm of rumors and conspiracy. Some blamed rival rapper Biggie Smalls. Others pointed fingers at Suge Knight, or even the police. but no one was ever charged. Then 6 months after Tupac's death, Biggie himself was killed in a similar drive-by in Los Angeles. 2 legends gone. 2 mysteries intertwined. The investigation dragged on for decades until Detective Greg Kading and his team reopened the case years later. They turned their focus on a man named Duane "Keffe" Davis, a high-ranking gang member who had long hinted that he knew the truth. He claimed to have been inside the car the night Tupac was shot, but refused to name the shooter. He said only that it came from the backseat. Detectives decided to apply pressure. They built a drug case against Davis and his associates. When faced with the possibility of decades in prison, Davis agreed to talk under protection. He described the night in detail. After the Tyson fight, Tupac and Suge Knight were seen beating a man named Orlando Anderson inside the MGM Grand. Anderson was Davis's nephew. The attack was caught on security cameras. Hours later, Davis gathered a group of men to seek revenge. He got a gun from a friend known as Zip, who was close to the music industry, and to Diddy. The group climbed into a white Cadillac and began searching the streets for Tupac. Around 11 that night, they found him. Tupac was leaning out of his car window talking to fans when the Cadillac pulled up beside them. Davis sat in the front. Orlando Anderson was in the back. Anderson took the gun, reached across another man, and fired into Tupac's car. Tupac was hit 4 times. Suge Knight managed to drive a short distance before crashing into a median. Tupac was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was too severe. 6 days later, his heart gave out. The world lost one of its most powerful voices. For years, Duane Davis stayed quiet. Then in 2019, he released a memoir, admitting his involvement in the plot. And in September 2023, he was finally arrested, charged as the organizer of the murder of Tupac Shakur. After 27 years, the truth had finally caught up. The man who once claimed to know the secret now faced justice, but the story does not end there. The murder of Biggie Smalls remains officially unsolved. Investigators believe it may have been a retaliation ordered by those loyal to Suge Knight. A gang member named Poochie Faust was rumored to be the shooter. He himself was killed years later in Compton, leaving behind yet another trail of unanswered questions. 2 icons, 2 cities, 2 bullets that changed music forever. And though time has revealed much, some shadows still remain.